Dad was a historian, huh? That's pretty cool.
Well, actually, technically no, but
Hmm.
he had a lot of historians come in and give their opinion on what happened. Because
Ah.
as we were discussing, he made a movie on how Yugoslavia got entangled in World War II.
Oh, that's a good
And
one. Okay, I would
yeah,
definitely like to watch that. Yes.
that movie is on the Serbian History Games channel, on this YouTube channel. And
Okay.
the point being is that it has to do a lot with the Serb character.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
I guess we need to get more in depth on this. But
Yes.
I think that we should today we should start off with, if I may, a couple of words on the sources. Why I generally rely more on German sources than I would rely on British sources or obviously communist sources.
I can confirm this notion because like every time I read a book from a different source, I was wondering what war they were describing. It's like, what are you guys talking about? And I go read a communist one. It's like, what are you guys talking about? And then of course the English are like, yeah, they have just like a little light touch on the whole thing there. But yeah, funny how the Germans wind up being the best source.
Well, actually, it's a very simple reason. It's they
Mhm.
didn't make up. It's not their history books. It's their reports.
Oh
So I'm not quoting German historians. I don't.
no, you're quoting German administrators basically or military reporters.
Exactly. So
Ah,
their
okay.
reports, as the report that I quoted on the Ustasha crimes, or the other reports that I'm going to be quoting, are mostly contemporary. So
Right. Okay.
so this is the estimation of what the Germans at that point think happens, and it's made for the Germans themselves, so for the higher commands or whatever. And
Okay.
it's made for operational purposes and not for propaganda purposes, obviously, and not for purposes of trying to whitewash themselves or things like that.
That's a really good point, Andre. That's okay.
So
I
if I
can
may
support this
start,
one.
yeah, if I
Go
may
ahead.
start off with a total cringe,
Yeah.
which would be the communist reports, but
Boy. So funny note while we're at this point. So one time I don't know how I stumbled across this, but I found a book about the Vietnam War written from the North Vietnamese perspective. And I said, I'm going to read this thing. And it was pretty much exactly what I think you're going to do here. It was really just a bunch of communist propaganda, and it was really hard to get through.
I can
In fact,
imagine.
yeah, it's funny. I think I saw the word puppet in text. I can't even begin to count. It was over 100 times in that book. It's like, okay, we got it. You guys, I get it, man. Let's use a different word here. All right, what you got, man? What is that?
So this is a small illustration. So the left hand picture is from a communist book from the 1980s.
All right.
So it's supposed to show Chetnik collaboration.
Oh,
Uh,
but that's a really bad, it's not even a Photoshop job. They just dropped Mikhailovich's head in there.
Mikhailovich's head is relatively unimportant here. I'm sorry. It's the other things are relevant here. The other officers here.
Okay. Yep.
Mikhailovich's
Yep.
head is just from the it's from the front page of the book, so it's
Okay.
necessarily included here. But the point
Oh, go
being
ahead.
is, if you see on the left hand side, you see a British officer and a German officer.
Yep.
And on the
Oh,
right hand side, you see that it's actually not a German officer; it's a Chetnik officer
yeah,
with the
there's no German
British
guy
guy.
there at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
funny. It's the same picture too. Ah,
So
okay.
this is the cringe level of communist propaganda.
Okay.
Obviously, so we have a huge problem when we look at the documents saved and compiled by the communists during communism, is that we don't really know if they have been tampered with, or even if they have been,
Oh,
made up from scratch.
Right. Yeah. You
So
have no idea because there's no source for it. There's not replication anywhere else. You can't go in another archive and see another version of this from a different angle. That's just the only thing you got.
again, some people were not lazy, so they contacted I think the German archive in Freiburg or something like that.
Oh, this
So
is like in the 90s and 2000s. They're
in the
doing this.
2000s, in the
Oh,
2000s,
wow. Okay.
they tried to get the original documents from the Germans. For instance, for obviously all the German documents which indicate of Chetnik German combat were cleaned out here. So
Really?
some people realized that they might be in the German archives, so they ordered them, and indeed there were some documents there.
Oh, get
So
out of
this,
here.
yeah, well, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's
Uh,
communist. How
yeah,
reliable
I got to
could they be?
remember. I got to remember their agenda. Their agenda is to basically tell you what the history is, not necessarily research it and then report what they find. It's more like making their own history, and then you just kind of go forward with this version they created without really thinking about it too much. But
Exactly.
thankfully, some other folks really wanted to give it a good think and kind of went back to the original source. Oh, okay, that's good. Okay.
That's actually one of the that's a huge shame that you don't have it in English. There is a book from a Serbian professor from Oxford, uh,
Okay.
who Professor Avakumovic, who or PhD Amakumovic. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is. Anyways, he
Yeah.
made a book called Mihailovic According to German Documents.
Ooh.
So this is
Wow,
what
that'd
this
be a
book
good
is.
one to read.
I don't think it's from the 50s. I think it's from the 60s. In any ways, it very much
Yeah.
debunks the communist propaganda. And
Oh.
and the huge problem is it's not available in English as far as I know. Now, a minute on the British versus German sources.
Yes.
Why? Okay.
Uh-oh. Oh, you're switching. Okay. Sorry, I got to get close to this. I can't really read it too well, so my face is going to get bigger here for a second. Oh, interesting. Wait a minute. So that's an English source?
The left-hand side is an English source. It's Fitzroy MacLean. It's
Yeah.
actually quoted from David Martin, but it's the integral report from Fitzroy MacLean that was with Tito and who
Yeah.
actually recommended that Tito should be given support. And
Ah.
that report is from 6 November 1943. And
Oh.
the right-hand side document is a German internal report, not intended for propaganda, but it's a report from Feldmarschall Weichs, and it's from 1st November. And
Wait, the
I have
same date,
just,
basically.
yes, and I have highlighted the big difference.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's huge.
Yeah, so I guess from the Fitzroy MacLean's report, when you look at the first paragraph, you see that the partisans killed 5 Germans for every partisan killed, and
Right.
10 Ustashi or Chetniks for every partisan killed. Now, some people might believe that, and if they do, we have very nice bridges here in Serbia. They're for sale
Yeah.
at a very good price.
You have that same saying?
It's
pretty funny. Back to your subject. Sorry.
So the big difference here that I wanted to highlight is the number of Tito's men.
Oh, hold on a second. I missed the numbers. What does it say? So 220,000. What? See, I believe the 100,000 more. I don't believe the 220 because this is like 43, right? Kind of like at the point where the partisans had kind of, in essence, done their 1,000-mile march. I mean, to me, crossing the Retva, that battle is kind of the partisan equivalent of like the Chinese communist 1,000-mile march. I mean, obviously they didn't go 1,000 miles, but they pretty much just about got wiped out to cross this river. And this was about the time that happened, right? Like late 43 when they were fighting around there. I forgot what city that is.
Well,
what's the city there?
Well, we will probably go into the Neretva thing in detail further on.
Oh, yeah, that needs to be a whole separate subject, a whole separate video.
Yeah. But you were basically correct. They were almost wiped out. Not crossing the Neretva because that was not actually a problem, because at that point they were friendly with the Germans. It was the problem when they were kicked out afterwards, because at that point the Germans, well, basically cheated on them and attacked them along with the Chetniks.
So the Germans did something funky there.
Oh yes.
So
listen,
this is after Italy is out of the war, right? So Italy's gone by this point, right?
Yes. Okay. This is late 1943, and Neretva and the Schwarz offensive were in mid 1943. So after Schwarz, the partisans were basically knocked down. There were like 25,000 of them in the country and at all.
Oh, that makes sense, because they were pretty much on the ropes at that point.
Exactly. The Chetniks were also hard hit, but the point being is that sometime in the autumn of 1943, partisans received Allied support and propaganda endorsement, so their numbers skyrocketed. But the point being is that Fitzroy McLean is here saying that their numbers jumped up 8 times or so. The German idea is that their numbers jumped up 4 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And when
I don't think they hit 200,000 probably till early 45, or maybe even spring of 45. I don't think they got 200,000 until then, probably.
200,000 they got when they managed to get hold of Serbia and to mobilize there.
Oh, okay. Oh,
and when you see,
so this is pretty much after the king. Was this after the king told the Chetniks that they needed to support Tito? Okay, that makes sense then. All right.
And also when the Red Army came in. But what I wanted to bring I wanted to bring your attention to is the number of divisions.
Okay.
So actually, when you look at
report too, 26 divisions versus 20 divisions. So let's see, division is like 15,000 men. So these are small divisions then, but yeah, that's almost 2 to 1. No, not quite 2 to 1.
Well, when you compare the reports, the Germans have a very good idea how many divisions are there. So they say 20 divisions, 14 independent brigades. Fitzroy McLean says 26 divisions. You know, some of these brigades were probably formed into divisions, and the Germans didn't know about that at that point. But the point being is that they have the same number of divisions, but or similar number of divisions, but Fitzroy McLean has doubled the number of troops. And this
so those are really big divisions then in his book.
Well, partisan divisions had anywhere from 1 to 4,000 people.
Oh, they're small.
They're small. They're guerrilla divisions.
Because normally a regular division would be like 12 or 15,000, but these, okay, I see that. Yeah, they're just kind of small divisions.
Exactly.
Probably more like brigades. Yeah.
Yes. When you have, for instance, when you have the Battle of Neretva, the 3 elite partisan divisions have about 4,000 people each.
Oh.
So that's small. Yeah, well, of course. I mean, these are guerrilla formations. You know.
Yeah, they're fighting a guerrilla war, so they don't need to be real big. In fact, they're actually worse if they are big in the guerrilla formations.
Yeah, and it sounds very nice that you have a division when you don't. But anyways,
no, you've got to.
That's the difference that I wanted to spotlight here, because the British number from McLean is kind of ridiculous, because
actually it's silly.
Yeah, when you go into his report, it's even worse, But the point being is that the German report is, brutal and realistic. They say that,
right.
Tito has so many men. He could have 80,000. He could have 120,000, but he can
Right.
have the double number of, from their estimate, because they know how many formations he has, and
Right.
they have obviously intelligence on him. So they're
Well,
fighting against
they're
it.
also like, yeah, they're also reconning it. I mean, they're actually maintaining a front line against them. So they're doing like the reconnaissance, and they can kind of keep track of where they run into forces when they fight. Whereas the English, they just have like, well, basically a few guys. I mean, they have a few teams. That's it.
Exactly. So when you look at McLean's report, it's clear that I don't think that he even prepared it. It looks like the communists prepared it for him and he just signed it. But anyways, that's one of the differences I wanted to highlight, simply on account of reliability.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the reasons why the Germans have first-hand reports and first-hand knowledge, and they're far more reliable. And you can go into McLean's report and you can see, like in the first paragraph, things that will make you cringe. So this is just an illustration before I go further into discussing what the Germans thought, who is their main enemy.
Yeah. So I guess I should ask you a real quick question here, though. So is McLean a celebrated figure in Serbia or a derised figure? I mean, do you guys celebrate him or do you curse him in Serbia?
Well, the communists celebrated him.
Communists
the Serbs,
do, yeah.
Obviously, the Serbs don't like the British in general. And
gee, that's really funny, because in World War II and World War I, they loved him, but I mean, they got World War II kind of changed all that.
Well, World War II changes a lot of things, but anyways, but that's just a small illustration. But let me go into that overview that I wanted to discuss. The overview on who is on the overview, or let's say let's call it credentials. Okay, I'm gonna share it.
Ooh, okay.
How visible is it?
Oh, that's really good. I have bad glasses, so I just have to put my face a little closer to it. But no, that's pretty good. Oh, there we go.
Perfect. So, so these are 6 snapshot credentials from the Germans, not from anybody else.
Okay.
This is the discussion of who their main enemy is. And one is from December of 1941. One is from June 1942. The other is from February 1943. There are some wanted posters from 1943, and I think this is from the summer. And the quotation that I already gave from 1st November 1943.
Wait a minute.
And the last one.
So, what the heck? So the middle ones are both 42.
Sorry, just the middle one, the upper middle one is 1942.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. So the upper one's 42, the bottom one is 43. Okay, now that makes more sense. All right, go ahead.
So going from the left-hand side, upper one, this from December 1943, this is a wanted poster for Mihailovich.
Oh, okay. Is that his name in bold there? Oh, that is his name, isn't it?
Yes, in Cyrillic.
Yeah.
So let me zoom in. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the leader of the renegades and the rebel, Draža Mihailovich, and he is being wanted with the reward of 200,000 dinars.
Okay.
Actually, I don't recall how many dinars would go for $1, but I think it might have been 1-to-1 at that point, or relatively close. Relatively close.
That's a ton of money then.
Yeah, it's a nice amount of money. Okay.
Yeah,
it's not a huge excessive amount of money, but we'll get to that.
Right.
Okay, so that's first. This is from December 1941. This is after the failed revolt in Serbia.
Right.
At
Like
this
just
point,
after it, right?
yeah, just after. And at this point, I'm not sure that even the Germans know who Tito is.
No, that's true. They probably don't. I mean, why would they?
Exactly. So this is because at that point, Tito was not that known. And the next statement is from June 1942. And this is from Dr. Avakumovic's book.
Mm.
And this is a quote from Himmler. So here he is ordering a manhunt against Mihailovic.
Right.
And the basis for any success in Serbia and the whole Southeast Europe lies in the destruction of Mihailovic.
Oof. Okay.
So actually, Himmler visited Serbia in the summer of 1942 to supervise the SS operations against one of Mihailovic's commanders.
Wow. Okay.
And at that point, Mihailovic was sabotaging the railroad traffic from Serbia to Greece.
All right. Which is huge for Greece because that's pretty much their only supply line because they can't really do much ship traffic since the English are going to sink all the ships. Some, but not a lot.
And also, as you know, quoted from American sources, also going on further to Rommel. So that might have been an auxiliary supply route for Rommel.
Yeah.
So it sounds a bit much to me, but then again, you know, I've seen this in numerous places. So you know,
I kind of get it because if you're actually sending supplies to North Africa, the Allies can do less to you when you have air cover over most of the route, as opposed to the other way. The Allies have like Malta, which is just intercepts everything. But we're not talking about North Africa.
Well, it's just a help that Mihailovic was providing to the Allies.
To the Allies, yeah, okay.
Yeah, which would be actually one of the bigger Serbian contributions to the war. But,
yeah, so is there like how many railroads go across the Greek border? There probably just one, right? There might be two, maybe. So that railroad would be hit a lot, then I would assume.
Yes. So that's the main railroad that goes from, I guess, Budapest or Central Europe to Salonika, to Thessaloniki, in Greece.
Because you just can't. Yeah, you can't build much there because it's all very mountainous. So you've just got like one or two roads. So yeah, okay, that actually makes sense because if they keep attacking that railroad, it actually becomes a real sore thumb issue for the Germans at some point because it's
exactly.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay.
Okay, now we go to a report from February 1943.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from a gentleman called Reinhard Gehlen. Who was actually, I think, after the war, some high-ranked NATO or Western German officer. And in 1943, he was working for somebody else.
Right.
We won't say who. In any ways, the point being is that he is again quoting that Mihailovic is the main problem.
In 43.
Yes, February.
Wow. Okay.
So Tito
this is early
43
though.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. This is early 43. Okay.
Exactly. And according to his estimation, 80% of Serbians are for Mihailovic.
You think that's true?
I don't know, but one of the things is that he was the most popular one by a long shot.
Yeah, he was certainly the most well-known by far, and I don't think it was even that close, really.
Nobody was that close. There was actually Tito became popular with the Serbians, but using various means. Actually, during the war, it's questionable whether the puppet from Serbia called Nedic was actually the
Nedic.
number 2. Yeah, he was that pro-German officer that I mentioned.
So did he stand up the initial republic, or did he kind of come up after the initial republic was wiped out in 41?
I think that I'll have to go in depth on this guy, because this guy is
it's kind of important.
Yes, he is. He's not the equivalent of Pavelic, but
No,
in
but he's
some
probably
sense, yeah, he's the German puppet here in Serbia. However, he doesn't actually. He's not really that independent, because Serbia is under German occupation. So he's basically.
Would you consider him to be a Quisling figure then?
Oh yes, he's the Quisling figure.
Okay, all right, there we go.
Okay, then we go to 1943, and I think this is the summer of 1943. And what happens is I see the resolution is terrible, and I apologize for this, but nevertheless, it's very clear that we have 2 wanted posters. I think you recognize both guys here.
Oh yeah.
And the reward is now equivalent. It's the same.
Oh.
Yeah,
really?
you get 100,000 Reichsmark in gold.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's serious.
Yeah, that's serious money.
Yeah.
Actually, there were a lot of people that tried to kill Mihailovic, but they didn't really succeed. So it was serious money.
Yeah. Wow. So this actually explains Operation Schwartz a bit, because this is kind of the season before all that really kicks off.
Yes, I think this is exactly at the time of Schwartz, because at that time the Germans want to eliminate all guerrillas operating in Yugoslavia, because there's a fear that they would be cooperating with the Allies if they land.
Oh, absolutely. Because you look at it in hindsight, you realize the Allies were never going to invade Yugoslavia. There was like no chance. It would have been really not make much sense for them. However, if you're the Germans trying to defend that, it's like, well, you don't know if they're coming or not. And for crying out loud, they're just right across the water. They're in Italy right now. So, I mean, why couldn't they just like scoot over here and do something? The Germans, you don't know. So you kind of have to clear all that out so you can busy yourself with the defense of Yugoslavia in case the Allies land there.
Exactly. So I guess at some point I'll even give the case why the landing in Yugoslavia would have made sense, but you're basically correct on the Allied logistics standpoint, and that's of course the most important one. But anyways, now we go to 1st November of 1943.
Yeah.
And then the Germans say the most dangerous enemy is Tito.
Yeah. Which is funny, because at that point, I think militarily he was probably in just about the worst shape he'd ever been.
No. Sorry. Militarily, he was the best shape.
Really? I thought this was after he got smoked in Operation Schwartz.
Well, because Operation Schwartz was in mid-1943. And because by 1st November, Italy surrendered. And Italians were told to join Tito. A lot of Croats and Bosniaks saw that Italy was surrendering and that the Axis may be going under, the Allies might be landing, and that they support Tito. So everybody was like, okay, Tito is pronounced the winner by the Allies, so we need to.
This is kind of like where England started like dumping all sorts of supplies there too. So they were just basically giving them enough equipment to stand up a real army at this point. Okay.
Yes. So everybody was thinking that Tito is going to be the winner. So at that point, a lot of people joined Tito.
Okay.
So at that point, Tito becomes the German main enemy. And just as an afterthought, This is of course, this is from Colonel Fuchs, the chief of Gestapo for Serbia, and this is from the trial of General Mihailovic by the communists, where Colonel Fuchs said, of course, Mihailovic was not our friend. We always considered him an enemy.
Right.
They considered him the most. It's not the most dangerous, but the most damaging to the Germans. So this is at Mihailovic's trial. Fuchs was also being on trial also, but this is what he said.
Trial. Was that
Yes.
late 40s or early 50s for the trial?
It's 1946.
Oh, early 40s or mid 40s. Oh, okay.
Yes. So let's get back to my thesis for a second, and why I said the things I said on the Three Kings. Why did I choose the answers that I choose here? So why would Mihailovic would be the main enemy and Tito would actually be the main German asset?
That is, when it, not that it would have worked out differently, but it almost seems like it would have been better for the Germans to support Mihailovic than Tito. But I mean, that wonderful thing about hindsight, you can say that. But I mean, Tito really, or I mean, Mihailovic just wanted to survive. He didn't necessarily want to blow things up. And the Germans just kind of wanted to keep peace.
Well, actually,
their people, of course.
I think that we will be going in depth into relations the Germans had with the Chetniks and with the partisans.
Oh, yeah, because we have to at some point, yeah.
Because, of course, they did have relations of various kinds.
Right. Sure.
But the point being is that when you look at what the Germans themselves said, so if they say that Mihailovic is a wanted man in 1941, if they say that he's their main enemy in 1942, at the beginning of 1943, he is still identified as a main danger. And Tito becomes their main enemy only in late 1943.
Yeah.
Then to me, it's a no-brainer who is a bigger problem to the Germans. Because by late 1943, the game is over. It's done.
Pretty much. Yeah, you're right. It is pretty much done at that point. You already know who's going to win.
Exactly. So
the main thing that happened is like the Germans started falling apart in 44. And once the Eastern Front started totally collapsing, it was pretty obvious that, the gig was up.
Exactly.
Wow, interesting.
I mean, so the point being is that if we look at who's making the most problems to the Germans, it's the guy that's making the most problems at the point when the Germans are the strongest.
Oh, right. Oh, interesting. At some point, the Germans must have transitioned from hanging out in Serbia to like really leaning into Bosnia territory. Because Serbia itself would have been pretty easy to control. Bosnia, you'd have a hard time ever controlling that. You're not really going to.
But when you look at it, in 1941, they had 3 divisions in Serbia, 1 division in Bosnia. They even had to bring up 2.5 divisions of first-line divisions to Serbia to quell the uprising. Technically, it's a Chetnik partisan uprising, but realistically, the Chetniks are the ones that are fighting the Germans, actually. And the Germans are coming in because they realize this is a national uprising, not a communist uprising. So by the time that more divisions are engaged against Tito than keeping guard in Serbia against Mihailovic, it's early 1942, not early 1942, but early 1943 or mid 1943.
Right.
At that time, there are more divisions oriented against Tito.
Right. Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Italians just kind of fell apart. Now all of a sudden you have like this massive vacuum there where there used to be like at least some pro-Axis garrisons. Now it's just totally empty. But more importantly, you have territory and you have weapons, because all these guys pretty much left their weapons behind. So now it's like a gold rush to try and see if you can scoop up these weapons and territory away from the other side. Huh.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So at
All
that
right.
point,
Well,
it's so these would be the quotes from the Germans, and
yes,
so this would be my reasoning, and
that's pretty good.
also my reasoning on why Tito would actually be a German asset.
Hmm. Pre-Italy surrender, right?
I'm sorry.
So was he an asset before Italy surrendered?
Oh,
Did you consider that?
yes, exactly. Because when Italy
Ah,
surrenders, when the Allies support Tito, then Tito is definitely an enemy of the Germans, and he's the main enemy of the Germans. But still,
ah.
still, Tito is a, well, I'm going to say it. Tito is a bad option for the Western Allies to support. And
Well, they certainly didn't. They certainly didn't look at the long-term ramifications of that decision. I
no,
can
no.
say that.
Even short term.
Really?
Yes. And this
Well,
goes.
I'll tell you what. We're going to have to save that for another time because I'm about out here. But that's a good thought to hold on to right there.
Give me 2
The
seconds.
point where. All right,
Give
go
me
ahead.
2 seconds. I just want to go back to the old map.
Ah, this map. Okay.
So you see the ethnic composition of Yugoslavia, and you see where the uprising flared up in 1941.
Yep.
So it's very clear and it's very
Oh
obvious.
yeah, Serbians.
Exactly. So there is a reason, of course, why Serbians revolted and why the Croats didn't, or why the Croats didn't revolt in Croatia and maybe revolted some in Dalmatia. But basically, when you look at somebody who's going to revolt and fight against the Germans, you're looking at Serbians.
Oh yeah.
So Tito comes in and he splits up the Serbians.
Ah.
And he's never going to unite Serbians under his banner. And he's going to have the problem to mobilize Serbians, all of them. And there is a integral problem of another kind, which is, do you really expect Croats and Bosniaks to fight against the Germans?
No. No.
Exactly.
Not really.
So hoping that the Croats and Bosniaks will be actually fighting against the Germans head on, it's kind of a, it's a dumb idea.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Exactly. So they were with Tito, but they came to Tito mostly because they expected Tito to win.
Yes.
Now, obviously, there is a background to this, and there is a reason why Serbs would fight the Germans and the other guys wouldn't. And there is a introduction to this. It does not necessarily make the other guys evil, because a lot of Eastern Europeans didn't want to fight the Germans and they went with Germans. So that's not something that in itself is a morality statement.
No,
well,
not at all.
Ustasha crimes are, but going with the Germans as opposed to the Allies, it's also a calculation. But there is a reason why.
Let's face it, if you look at the whole territory, pretty much everybody there was pro-German except for the Greeks, and the Greeks got conquered. So that means everyone in this area is pro-German. at this point, much. Like 41, 42, yeah.
Pretty much, because the option is either Germans or the Soviets.
Yeah, I think the Germans are a better option.
So I'm gonna leave you here now, and I'm just gonna say there is a YouTube video on this YouTube channel. There's a video on inertia of the past, on why the Serbs did not want to go with Germans.
Okay, I'm gonna watch that, and then I guess you'll be testing me on our next meeting, right? So I get a little pop test to see how well I studied. Fair enough. All right, I will do that. All right.
So So have a pleasant day. Thanks a lot for your
Yes.
time, and we'll talk
Oh,
next
this is
week.
great. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good week.